Let me share with you why I am so fussy about technique. Why is it that I'm after precision with all of those that I coach? Why is it that I insist we come back to an empty bar before we start loading? Why do we need to master those movements first? From my own experience, I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I did. As a youngster in the sport, I made a lot of mistakes. There were certain things that I was taught and they were not ideal. They were not optimal, and as a result, I suffered the consequences. I have had a lot of injuries throughout my career, and albeit it's been a fairly long career, but that said, I've had too many injuries that I should never have had. Now, the biggest injury that I've got is a spondylolisthesis. I've got a bilateral pars defect and compression in my lower back. Basically, I've got a broken back. If you imagine the vertebrae sit one on top of the other, you've got two little wings that stick out, and they allow this sideways bending. And what I've done is crack the wings. They will never fix, they will never heal, and I will always, forever now, have that as an underlying condition. Now, this happened to me, or it was first brought to light around 2000. I was at the time 18, 19 years of age. I was quite young in the sport, but I was lifting fairly substantial weights for my age, but without the safety of doing so correctly. Now, when I started lifting, I had zero physical condition. I played other sports, but I was never specifically trained to protect my body. So I did no core work, I did no shoulders, no arm work, no accessory work. Accessory work wasn't a thing. You went into the gym, you did your lifts, and you got out. That was it. The other issue that I had was around positions and the way that I moved. I look back now and I do cringe when I see how I used to move. And I watch videos of me as a youngster and I'm just looking and thinking, oh my goodness me, how did I not get even more badly injured? It's all very well looking back in hindsight, but what I will say is through the course of my career, whenever I've sustained an injury, that is what has caused me to go back to basics. That is what has resulted in me looking for technical perfection and what has helped me to become the rounded coach that I've become. I've lifted with different technique, which I believe has resulted in me sustaining and picking up a load of injuries. I've also changed my technique and reaped the rewards as a result and been able to go on and enjoy a much longer career than I may otherwise have had. If we look at movement pattern, now, if you learn to move well from the outset, with great technique, activating the right muscles, then you put yourself in the best possible chance of minimizing and reducing the risk of injury. It was only when I sustained these injuries that I had to go back and readdress where I was at. And the biggest thing that we found early in my career when I sustained a nasty injury was that I didn't have any glute activation. Now, without glute activation, it meant I was unable to extend powerfully through the second phase of the lift. Instead, I was relying on leaning backwards and using my lower back to open up at the hip to generate momentum on the bar. Undesirable now. I would be wanting and demanding that my lifters had glute activation so that when they extended powerfully, they got maximum contraction of knee and hip together using quads and glutes. And if you achieve that, you get a nice straight position at full extension rather than leaning back. That's massive. That's massive in terms of injury prevention. Another one of the problems that I had as a young lifter was whenever I used to do front squats, back squats, or cleans, or even snatching when I was overhead with a bar. From the receiving position to standing up, I would twist. And only fractionally, but as I would twist, you think how many thousands of repetitions I would have done over my younger career. My back basically had enough. Years and years of torsion on the spine, and one day my back said, bang. And that was it. That was the first time I sustained a really serious injury, and something that a lot of people said would finish my career. As a junior lifter, I was so badly injured that I couldn't even walk. I was out of the sport for about 18 months. And do you know what's really sad is nobody contacted me, nobody checked in from the governing body to see if I was okay. Nobody really cared. At the end of the day, I was just an athlete, and that was it. And unfortunately, this is the story in many sports. When you're doing well, the governing body support you and they want to know about it. And when you're not doing well, if you're hurt and you need support, they wipe their hands of you and they move on and look after the next person whilst they're in their peak. And that is just elite sport. That is what it is. But throughout that time, I made the decision that I was not going to go down the route of surgery, which is what was recommended to me. Instead, I was going to understand better how the body worked. And this is when I was very fortunate to be put in touch with a wonderful woman, Joanne Elphinston, who basically took me from a broken lifter with a broken back to rehabbing. And that rehab process was slow, it was steady, but it taught me so much. It taught me how to activate key muscles. And by those key muscles, I'm talking about glutes. I'm talking about multifidus, a muscle in the back, quite a deep muscle which helps stabilize the spine. She taught me about how to activate trans abs, but not just isolating these muscles and doing a load of random exercises. Yes, we did that as well. But then we took that ability to the bar and learned how to move well, activating the right muscles. And when I now, as a coach, see lifters making the same mistakes that I did, that's when I say, stop, please stop. Bring the weights down. Let's get an empty bar. Let's get a really, really light bar and let's look at movement pattern. Because if I can help retrain that athlete to move better, the weights will come back. That's no problem. But you can't retrain a lifter on a heavy weight or when they're under any load. It's got to be on a weight that's light enough so they have total time to focus on key positions and activating certain muscles. You can't do that under load. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I am so fussy with those that I work with. I don't care how well somebody's moving, there's always little things that can be improved. Let's strip it back. Let's get those bits as good as we can get. And if you imagine the bigger that foundation, the better, the stronger, the more solid that base, then the further that lifter is going to go. It scares the life out of me when I see lifters learning how to lift, and before they can even move well with a bar, they're being loaded. That to me is just criminal. Now, I would ask all of you to consider the position that you're in. Are you moving with excellent technique? If the answer is no, then do something about it. Reach out for help. Drop me a message or go and speak to somebody who can help you. But please be mindful of not just pushing. If you're pushing and you're not in the right positions, expect injuries. We've all seen it. We've all seen high-level athletes. We've all seen weightlifters. We've seen CrossFitters get very badly injured as a result of the way they move. Now, I'm not mentioning any names, but my question is, could some of these injuries be avoided? And I think a lot of these injuries can be avoided if we're moving with precision. Now, this is a sport we're trying to master. It is unmasterable, but we can give it a damn good go and get as close as we possibly can. And if nothing else, we're going to minimize the risk of injury. So take a minute, reflect on where you're at as an individual. How are you moving? Where are your areas for improvement? But most importantly, how are you going to make those technical changes to get yourself moving even better?